What's up, guys? Brett Okamoto from ESPN, joined by Tim Welch, of course, the coach of Sean O'Malley, who had the big main event at UFC Noche here in Las Vegas, sipping his. The podcast setup is pristine, and then that coffee looks like it's professional style, Tim. I mean, you're just living life good over there.
I mean, yeah, I really can't complain too much.
The barista, how is the coffee business, by the way? Is it still going well?
The coffee shop is going better than I ever expected. I mean, I tried to make the absolute best coffees that I love and have everything that I love from a coffee shop in my shop, and then all these recovery drinks for training and stuff. So it's going better than I thought.
Yeah, what a great side project, man. But we're here to talk about, of course, your main role there, and that is as Sean O'Malley's coach. You've had what 72 hours now to process it. I mean, just what are your general thoughts at what happened at UFC 306? Like, what comes to mind? What have you found yourself thinking about the most?
I mean, we knew Merab was going to be an issue like that, and I didn't really expect him to be shooting into double legs and crawling up to the hips. In none of his previous fights, he's always sticking to a high crotch. He's always sticking to a single leg. But I did hear John Wood say in one of the embeds that they're working on not making him have to get so many takedowns. The one he does get, they're going to make it count. Um, I mean, he just showed up and he looked good. There's just really no excuses. He showed up. He was a machine. He had great timing on his shots. I didn't expect him to have that good a timing on his shots. So Sugar's getting surgery on his hip labrum soon, and that I'm excited for that because then we'll be able to finally get back to real grappling practices like we used to in previous years. The past year, we've been able to do just little bits, little probably 10-second goes, 15-second goes from the ground. That's all really his hip and his back could handle. So getting that fixed and getting back to real grappling practices, real jiu-jitsu, real wrestling practices, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and that's interesting to me because of course, Sean comes out and reveals that he has to have surgery, that he had the hip injury. And immediately kind of like the obvious question is, well, how did that hinder him, in the fight and everything else? And in my mind, it's what you just said. It's the training, right? I mean, by the time the fight comes, like, was it bothering him at all, or is the big pullback like that he just can't do as much in the training portion of it?
I mean, he got some cortisone shots to mask everything. So, but we really couldn't spend a lot of time on the mat like we have in previous years. Um, just really doing a full wrestling practice or a full jujitsu practice. It's never been that. We've just been kind of working around that injury the best we can. And like I said, we were still able to train on the fence a little bit. We were still train short goes on the ground. But it'll be nice to get this out of the way so we can get back to actually training how we actually want to.
And so he said it happened 10 weeks ago. So it basically happened like right when you started opening camp for this fight, it sounds like then.
Yeah, and I mean it's been lingering there for a while. So I think he had surgery scheduled 8 weeks ago for right after the fight.
Huh.
But like I said, no excuse. It didn't hinder him in the fight. We did have a great fight camp, the best we could have. And Merab just did a good job. He was just on that night. His timing was on. They had a great game plan, kind of avoid the fight for the first 2 minutes, not really come forward, and then find their time for shots. And yeah, congrats to John Wood. They had a great game plan. But I do believe in my heart that we'll get that fight back.
For sure. And I mean, because I want to talk about this injury a little bit more, but you guys have made it very clear this is no excuses that Sean thought he could win the fight. He wouldn't have been in the fight if he did thought otherwise. So no excuses. All credit to Merab and to John Wood and his camp.
Yes.
But it happens that far out, and this isn't just some everyday fight. I mean, Sean was, in his mind, of course, undefeated champion. Like, there's a lot at stake. There's a lot at risk every single fight he has, championship fight. And I know that all fighters go in with some kinds of injuries, but do you ever like second guess it of like, man, what are we doing fighting a championship fight with a torn labrum? Like, is it like, what were those conversations like? And then do you have any regret now?
I mean, a little bit after the Cheeto fight, we could have took all that time off and made it a huge thing. But he's such a competitor, and he's such a showman that he's like, if I can get through training camp with a cortisone shot, then I'm gonna do the fight. And he made that decision. And it wasn't just one cortisone shot. I mean, I don't want to like air a bunch of stuff out there, but it was a couple. So that was his decision. That was our decision, and we gotta deal with it. we could have freaking retired after Cheeto fight and really, really healed up everything and came back, which maybe that's what we should have done. But I mean, we didn't no one has the best camp, especially these 5 round camps. Merab was probably beat up. Everyone's probably
Mhm.
beat up in some area. So he was just wanting to do it.
You feel like that'll like have an impact at all moving forward if he is a little nicked up? Like, do you think that this will change at all any type of way that you feel about those things moving forward?
I think that hip labrum, um, that injury, all those muscles are connected, moved into his back, and it had to do with that rib injury with Aljo also. And it had these things. It just kind of moved up his body. So moving forward, once we get the hip labrum fixed, I don't think it'll affect him at all. I think we'll be able to actually get after it harder than we have been.
This is going to sound like I'm maybe trying to stir up some drama or whatever. I'm really not. I would like to know your opinion on this. I've seen you give credit when you're giving credit to Merab. It's like he surprised us by not engaging, early in the rounds, and he was really great at eating clock, like making the fight go faster. Do you I know you respect it, but like, is there a part of you that's like, that's not fighting? Like that, like trying to like eat up clock is not fighting. Like, is there any kind of feeling of that from you or Sean, like your side of things, or is that just like that is the sport that you're in, or is this like is this kind of feeling of like, bro, it's we're in the sphere, come fight me? Like, do you have that feeling at all?
Not really. I mean, just like you said, that's the sport we're in. That's what we signed up for. And to have to be there locked in there with Sean, I mean, you're gonna have to eat up clock. Every second you have on the feet with that kid, he could put you away at any moment. So that's never really a thought. We know that's what Merab does. If you're gonna get in a fight with Merab and lose, there's a good chance it's just gonna be him hugging you around the waist. But like I said, he he made Sean carry his weight in a lot of different positions, and he did a good job at winning the rounds.
I've seen some people come out and say, I've seen a lot of people come out and say dominant. Like Merab dominated O'Malley, exposed O'Malley. What is your reaction to that kind of sentiment that Sean was a little bit exposed or that he got dominated by this guy?
I mean, on two of the judges' scorecards, he won round 3 and 5 against
Hmm.
a cardio machine, and he had him hurt in round 5, like seriously hurt, where he could have damn near put him away in round 5. So I mean, like I said, I mean, his timing with his wrestling wasn't there. His the confidence in his jiu-jitsu wasn't there like it has been before. And I mean, when it comes to rounds, I mean, he did kind of dominate those positions. I'm pretty sure Sean beat up his face and beat up his body worse than Merab did him. But positionally, yeah, we got dominated in that fight.
Did that affect his striking, do you think? Like, was he a little apprehensive? Was he a little, did it impact the way that he was throwing shots? Because in the back of his mind, he was kind of worried about Merab just kind of holding him and getting into him like that.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's like, man, you got to be more urgent. You got to KO him now. But it's like you sprint forward and try to KO someone like Merab, he ducks under, and now you're fighting him off you the rest of the round when he's on top of you. So it did kind of hold him back from opening up. He would be way out of range for a while. Then when he would come in range, he'd do a good job, and he just good job disguising his punches. And a few times, and I haven't seen that before, Sean punched over the top of his head, and Merab ducked underneath and just had great timing on his shot. So you just, like I said, you can't take it away from him mentally and physically. Or we were prepared for that fight, and they were better that night.
I heard Sean say in your guys' podcast that he was just really strong. Is there a way to really combat that, or is it just like Sean is fast and long, like Merab is just really strong, or can you like can you combat like grip strength? And can you teach him that? Like, it can strength not be as much of an issue if they were to fight a second time?
I mean, if you're really really active off your back and comfortable off your back, creating angles off your back, using your butterflies, not getting behind in certain positions where Merab can just kind of stick you and pin you there, trying to stay ahead of those and having good reactions to all his grappling, there is definitely ways to negate that.
What do you think? So he gets the surgery, and then what would you like to see? Like having been in a championship fight like that now and suffering, the first loss, like the real loss that you guys, because you didn't feel like the Cheeto one was legitimate. Like, what do you think is appropriate? I know you'll make this decision like as it comes, but
Mhm.
how much time would you like him to just get in the gym and like get to a point where you're like, okay, we're ready to go on a championship run and hold the championship again? Like what's kind of like your thought process in terms of moving forward and once he gets healthy?
Probably realistically the summer. I mean, I'm not sure how long these hip labrums take to heal, but we're gonna do it completely right and not really rush it. But hopefully by June or July, we're ready to fight again and then make another run at the title.
Okay, so you don't really want to put a set aside time to just kind of like do some wrestling, do some jujitsu, like really kind of focus on that. Like that'll just come naturally in like a fight camp type thing.
Yeah, like I said, once we're gonna put all the work ethic into healing from this injury and doing everything physical therapy wise to come back strong from the injury, and then we'll get back to our training. So it's hard to say right now, but I know he's just itching. It's burning him pretty bad, so he's itching to get back in there. So he'll probably want to get back in there as quick as possible, but we're gonna obviously try to make sure he's 100% healthy.
Do you think this is going to turn into one of those where he's like, I got to fight Merab again? Like, this has got to be the guy. Like, even if it's Umar with the championship, like, let's say Merab isn't able to hold on to the title, you think it's going to be one of those things that he has to get back, or not, maybe not necessarily?
I mean, from talking to him yesterday, it seems like he really, really wants that fight back because he knows he can beat Merab. So it sounds like he wants that one back.
As his coach, when he does come back, it's hard to say because the landscape is always changing. But what fights do you think would be good for him to come back? What fights do you think you would get up for? He would get up for? Like, if we fast forward a little bit and you're going into camp, who would be the name that would get you the most excited?
Uh, man, there's just so many. Corey Sandhagen is such a sweet fight. We know that fight was going to happen eventually. Henry Cejudo, we're in the same city, so we would really get pumped up for that fight, beating up that little dude. And then, I mean, there's a bunch. The bantamweights, it's so stacked now. So I think those two fights would probably be. I mean, even Figueiredo, if that one was possible in the summer, any of those three.
What about Aldo, man? I would like to. I think that would be a sick fight. Did that cross your mind? Like, what would you think about Aldo?
Yeah, I mean, that would be crazy standing across from Jose Aldo. We've been fans of him for a long time, so but that's definitely I think a winnable fight for us also. So any of those would be really sweet.
Dude, when Merab kissed his back at the end
Mhm.
of the round, that was a little confusing. Like I don't think any of us really understood why Merab just stopped fighting. Um, I'm just kind of curious what you thought of that moment and
I
what went through your head.
It's just annoying when they talk about he likes to just bring up sportsmanship and man, this is a professional sport. It's like, dude, you're kissing my buddy's back, trying to smash his face. It's not. And then, well, what kind of made me angry is when he got up, that Herb got in the middle of him, or even at the
Hmm.
beginning of the fight when Merab was having his little spaz out, that Merab got in the middle of him. I didn't know that was in the rules. If you want to freak out and your anxiety is too high, that you can kind of call a timeout and the ref can come in. I didn't know that, but now I do, I guess.
I think Herb, like I'll give him a little bit of grace for the first round one because I think he just wanted to get in there and nip it in the bud that you guys would stop talking to each other. But you're absolutely right on the second one. He kind of got and I don't know how much it would have necessarily mattered, but he did kind of get in the way. And if Marab just stands up and lets him up
Mm-hmm.
and walks back, then that's not a pause. Like, can you imagine if Sean would have like thrown a head kick or something, and that's how the fight would have
I mean, I swear, if Merab wouldn't, I mean, if Herb wouldn't have gotten his way and he could have turned his hips and his shoulders over, he might have KO'd him right there. But
that would have been. I mean, that would have been like Mayweather and
yeah,
Evan Ortiz. Yeah.
yeah.
One other thing I wanted to bring up, and this is like why you just cannot trust Twitter, is that like I was in the Sphere and I was watching the fight live, but then I all of a sudden saw on Twitter that people were saying you told him before the fifth round, we're almost done with this, and people were saying like, oh, they've quit, and like I got to be honest, when I read that on Twitter, I was like, well, that doesn't sound great, but then
Yeah.
I watched it, and it to me, I took a different interpretation of it. Did you see any of that chatter about what you said about the fifth round, and what did you see out of Sean going into the fifth round?
I mean, it came out the wrong way. I've meant to say we're almost done with this, like that. You're going to clip him at any time. But
Mhm.
also, I've known Sean for 12 years. I know what's going through his mind and keeping him confident. I always forget those cameras are rolling on my mic and stuff. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I want to keep his head in it. I didn't. It sounded way worse than it actually was. I was meant to say this fight's almost over.
Mhm.
We're almost done with this. You can clip him at any point, but it just came out the wrong way and it sounded stupid.
Nah, when I watched it, it seemed like this is what my interpretation of it is that he looked a little tired. He looked a little tired, and he looked like maybe it was going to be insurmountable, and like maybe you were telling them like in the same way of like, no, you got one more hill sprint, just one more, just one more. It kind of came across as that. Was that sort of what you were trying to get at?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. He just when he came back to the corner, he did look a little defeated in my eyes. That's why I mean, I said, "Hey, we're almost done with this. Don't be so defeated right now." But it came out we're bad. I could see what people think that.
I mean, just I guess just the overall feel of do you like this sort of I mean, you guys have been going like this
Yep.
forever, you know? How do you think it'll feel going now this, you know, where like you take a shot and now this is like your comeback story, you know? Do you think it's going to feel much different? Do you think it's going to bring out something different in you guys? Do you think like the vibe is going to be different? Like just not having things completely just like rocket ship to the top now is like your first hurdle?
I think I mean, just a perfect time to practice what we preach all the time. I mean, I've been around fighting a long time. I know eventually you're probably going to lose. If you keep fighting the best people on the planet Earth in your weight class, eventually you're going to lose. And I just think every fight for Sean's going to be a big fight. The buildup's going to be big. He's just such a showman. I think it'll be similar to like every fight Nate Diaz is in is a big fight. Every fight
Mhm.
Jorge Masvidal is a big fight. So I think it'll be similar to Sean. And right now, I think it's gonna really light a fire under him and not just kind of just trying to coast to these fight camps. Like it's gonna light a fire on him. We're gonna get this surgery done, and he's gonna go back to like really training hard and not having to just tiptoe around these injuries.
Yeah. Actually, very last question is and I'm assuming that this is going to be the fight. I think everybody is. Merab versus Umar. When you sit down to watch that fight, what are you going to be paying attention to the most, and what kind of biggest questions are going to be in your head when you're about to watch that fight?
It's going to be interesting because Merab's going to be able to get deep into those shots with Umar and probably not be able to finish them. So the way Merab's going to have to win that fight is probably something similar to Sean and put him on the fence and pin him on the fence. But Umar, I don't think Habib and those guys, I think they're going to be ready for that. So I think that's a very tough fight for Merab.
Hmm. Cool, man. Always really, really appreciate it. It was still an amazing experience, start to finish. I mean, Sean O'Malley headlined the Sphere. That's pretty wild. And hopefully the surgery goes well and he gets healthy, and we'll see you guys back in 2025.